Welcome, SBG players, to another episode of an unexpected podcast. And today I have
I'm not again.
you said about my absence from previous episodes.
No, I just meant that we're recording another episode. Hey,
Oh,
stop!
A lot to be surprised about.
exactly. Well, here we got Matt Iverson and Alistair Romanov joining me to talk about the War of the Rohirrim box set. So this news coming out probably about a week late upon filming this because we wanted to hear everyone else's reactions before we thought of our own.
Yeah,
And
that's
True.
that's what that's what the story is. Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what
that's
happened.
it.
So we're also going to talk a little bit about the rise of Angmar after that. We have some games that we have done a few games, going over some of the legions in the rise of Angmar. So we're going to talk about our experience with that, and then of course we'll wrap it up with a little bit of Rings of Power, probably 5 minutes going over that. We might devote a whole episode to that later on down the road. So with that being said, we're probably going to go over the contents of War of the Rohirrim, this box set, and then we don't have any rules, of course, other than Wolf's like special rule that he had. I
Well, we
believe it's
we
his
have
special.
hints. We have hints.
Yeah,
The
hints.
characters have dropped that have hints about what their special rules are, so we'll talk through that.
Okay. Well, then what does this box set come with, Matt?
All right, so let's put this up
Do
on
you
the
want to
screen
share?
for those
Yeah.
of us who are watching at home. All right, so we have the Hobbit Day reveal. This came out on September 22nd.
Hmm.
There's going to be a new box set tracking the War of the Rohirrim. There's actually a trailer that they put out, which is kind of fun to watch. It has some of these new figures in context. But inside the box, we have when you buy this box, you're going to get the new 176-page rules manual, and there's a picture of the cover on there in the Warhammer community page if
It's
you
the
want to see it.
Fellowship, actually. Ironically, it's the Fellowship.
It
That's
is.
kind of interesting. Yeah, like for a War of the Rohirrim, they chose Fellowship art. So,
Well, I mean, this isn't the War of the Rohirrim book. This is the rule book. This
oh,
is
true.
the
Yeah, yeah,
rule
that
book.
makes sense.
There is a War of the Rohirrim 48-page scenario and profile book
Hmm.
that you're going to get, and that does have the War of the Rohirrim art on it. You get 12 six-sided dice, worth the price right there. A Middle Earth range ruler, which, boy, I don't know if anybody ever uses these things. Um, and a 3x3 double-sided playmat,
I
which,
think they just didn't want to give like a measuring tape. That's my assumption.
oh yeah,
For rule.
probably.
I
But
think it was too expensive.
what was puzzling me was the 3x3 double-sided playmat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that is strange.
originally like almost made my heart jump out of my chest. But I heard other people, given that I run Nova, that would have been devastating. But um, I've heard a lot of people say that what all that is simply a starter set thing across the board for all Warhammer games. Because I suppose the Horus Heresy and Warhammer starter sets, the 40K ones, also have 3x3, even though the game is not played on a 3x3.
Okay.
So that is what I've heard regarding that. But I'm
Yeah.
hoping that's all
Well,
that is.
I mean, I'm guessing that the scenarios that come in the book that comes with this are all going to be on a 3x3 because otherwise, why include it?
I'd have, yeah, actually, it's a good point. I don't imagine that they will be the competitive. Well, actually, if you get the rules manual, then maybe you'll have some competitive scenarios. That'll be really interesting if the whole game goes to a 3x3. And I guess we could theorize on that, on what the game would be like if it all went to a 3x3.
Well, you
Well,
know,
Ken, I think panic is in order.
Yeah.
total panic. I mean, evidently the rules manual is 48 pages smaller than the current rules manual.
Oh,
Oh,
okay. That's
So, yeah, all
yeah, but we don't
Devin,
know what we're
all of your
losing.
boards for Nova are useless, is essentially what I'm getting
Fortunately, they didn't make it a
at.
5x5. If they made it a 3x3, so I could just yell at everyone and be like, "Guys, measure, 6 inches in."
and yeah,
I'm sorry.
sorry, but we're not redoing this.
What is done has been done.
Well, look, I mean, if this were to happen, I mean, I don't think there's I don't think there's anything they could do to change, to say, where you'd say, yeah, no, sorry, we're just doing 4x4. The, was there was once a time, and I can't remember if it, how the current scenario books are, but there was once a time when all the scenarios were laid out to be played on a 4x6, which nobody ever did.
Yeah.
Um,
Actually, I think the game, I can't remember all the way back then, but I do believe the game was actually originally designed for 4x6, given that was GW's like their whole their whole thing was 4x6 for all of their game systems, and then nobody did it. I can't remember if back before Legions of Middle Earth was it ever on a 4x6 though, but I do remember references to it even back then. So shrinking the size of the board isn't exactly a new thing.
right. But nor is it a irreversible thing if you decide you just want to play on
4x4. And that's what I think would happen. I mean, honestly, as a quick thought on the whole 3x3, one, it actually might benefit the game. Let's just say that this actually is where it's going. Shooting, as far as a lot of legions and such don't, have anti-shooting tech, or I don't know, of course, but maybe that'll all change in the new edition and all that. But like shooting would be a little bit reduced. I think there's certain like you'd also get to the game faster that way. So like matches like, and again, I don't know if this will change in the future, but if like said to the death stays the same, then now it's easier to run across the board. The game speeds up. Originally, back in the Hobbit edition, they just let you meet in the center. Most of the scenarios were all just center, and you just started there. But maybe this is an answer to bringing back 12-inch deployments and how it slows the game down. Storm the camp won't hurt as much here.
Yeah, I guess that's all true. But on the other hand, it will mean all of my lovingly crafted, detailed terrain 4x4 terrain boards will be useless, which will, of course, force me to go on a killing spree in Nottingham.
That's how I kind of feel about the whole 3x3. I'm like, God damn.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only benefit is it's not like they made it 4x6, because increasing the size of my boards would be horrible. Luckily, it's like, okay, sure, I guess 6 inches across the entire board is no longer playable map, but it's not the worst thing ever. But that's the only thing I can think of if it's true.
I mean, for my various victims, it will probably be the worst thing ever, but frankly, they'll deserve it. So
I mean, when you guys hear about 2 Americans getting arrested in Nottingham, you'll know why. You'll have a detailed understanding of why they got arrested.
The active shooter incident in Nottingham.
He kept yelling out 3x3. I
don't know.
Fair enough.
All right. So what else do we get? We get 2 of the Rohan house kits, which are fun little terrain pieces. I enjoy those Rohan houses. You get a quick reference guide, which I think we're going to get a glimpse at later, which is always useful. I've always kind of been in favor of quick reference guides because I think they're very useful for people who are just getting into the game. You get 56 miniatures, which we'll go through in some detail a bit. And these include Haleth, Prince of Rohan, Hama, Prince of Rohan, not that Hama, different Hama, 24 Warriors.
Not that Haleth, different Haleth.
Yeah,
that's right. Fair enough, yeah. 24 Warriors of Rohan, and these are new sculpts that we'll see in a moment. Wolf, leader of the Dunlendings, which we've seen previewed before. He's the guy with the 2 swords riding the horse. General Targ, who I'm pretty sure is a Klingon, and 24 Hill Tribesmen, which are new sculpts. So let's take a look at these.
Yeah, I will say just on the numbers, and I'm just going to comment only on that.
Yeah.
If, let's say, these profiles do not change at all, and of course we don't know what the 2 leaders are, but I'm excluding them kind of almost exclusively, right? Like take the heroes out. 24 Warriors of Rohan will crush 24 tribesmen. Like absolutely wipe them out.
I mean, we're gonna see these figures, and I don't think you're wrong, but let's
if again, we don't know if the Hill Tribesmen are going to keep the same rule set or the Rohan Warriors. So
Yeah, but I mean, we can. Well, anyway, we'll see. So this is Haleth, Prince of Rohan. So we're going back in time. Different guy named Haleth. This isn't the little boy that's now all grown up. Um, and he has an axe, and he looks like he's got an armored horse. And he is the eldest son of Helm Hammerhand, heir to the throne of Rohan. Um, and let's see. There's some stuff about what he can do. All right, so we don't really get anything about what
Yeah.
special gifts he may have.
So, I mean, we can only infer stuff from
Yeah,
the model. So, armored horse,
and then
axe, which means now apparently nothing in the new edition.
yeah, although I'm wondering if that's a hand and a half axe or a two-handed axe.
Good point. Well, I imagine it have to be hand in half. Look how he's holding the thing.
With one hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, logic would dictate, but this is Games Workshop, so one never knows. Um, all right, and then we have Hama, Prince of Rohan, who comes with a bow, the youngest son of Helm, a warrior poet, an adept with a bow. All right, so he's going to be the shooty hero of Rohan. Um, Interesting, we don't get the girl who figures quite prominently in the movie trailer.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's an
Yeah.
interesting point.
Yeah, I don't know her. I don't know her name, or at least if
Which
I.
bugs me the hell, actually. Why does she have red hair?
Why would she have red hair? I mean, that's a Rohan
Yeah.
thing.
Is red hair a Rohan thing?
Yeah, yeah. Hama had red hair. The original, not
Wow. I guess I've just, my assumption
with
was
Hama, but
all of the Rohirrim had blonde hair.
no, they have blonde going to red. And they also had blonde going to brown. I
Huh.
mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure that the guy who played Hama had red hair.
I'm now going to type this. Rohirrim with red hair. You can keep going.
All
I'm
right,
just
okay, good, because we're all kind of waiting on your.
Of
All right,
all of the things to strike you, I'm so surprised at this.
then we have the new Warriors of Rohan, and these are nice looking sculpts. They're all different poses.
Yeah.
These are not your old Warriors of Rohan, but they all appear to be equipped the same. I mean, you got guys with throwing spear and shield. You got guys with sword and shield, and you got guys with bows. Well, I mean, you also have guys with axes and shield, but that's not going to matter from what they've been saying. But they're nice looking poses, and nice looking figures, and good to get some kind of revamped Rohirrim. However, they all do look like they're going to have armor and shield. So when we go and we take a look at the Hill Tribesmen, we can take a look at that and see what we have.
Oh, I
Um,
remember some of the hill tribesmen had shields. That's right. So their profile is going to have to change.
yeah. All right. So here's Wolf, leader of the Dunlendings. And you're wearing a foot and mounted. They've talked about him already. He's a two-handed or a dual wielding sword guy with an anger management problem. Um,
Yep.
and nice looking figure though. And then we have General Targ. I have to say, whenever somebody says General somebody and it becomes a leader, I always think we're like in either Star Wars or Star Trek Klingon.
Yeah, you're right. This could be definitely a name that would come straight out of Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fresh off his success in the Clone Wars, General Targ is going to parachute into Edoras. Trusted advisor of Wolf and his father Freka, skilled in the way of strategy and warfare. All right, so maybe master of battle. Ruthless commander and fearsome fighter who shares his liege's disdain for the Rohirrim under Helm's rule. Mounted on foot,
He's
clad in a
probably
fur cloak.
he's probably like a buff hero, or like you said, Master of Battle or something like
Yeah,
that. And Wolf is your fighter.
right. Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, we seem to have like a fighty hero in Haleth, and then a shooty support type hero in Hama,
Yeah.
and then we've got a fighty hero in Wolf, and then
Not shooty, but support.
support
Yeah.
type hero in General Targ.
Mhm.
And then we have the tribesmen of Dunland. And we have, so this is fun. We got guys with torches. That's a new thing. Guys with what appear to be spears.
It's not, well, torches are not entirely new. I mean, the Berserkers had torch. I understand it's for the bomb, but I don't think a torch aesthetic.
And they seem to be like armed with these things.
From the perspective of I don't see another weapon, yes.
Right. Yeah, because there are guys in here. That's interesting because they've got guys with shield and torch, and they've got guys without shield and torch. And I'm wondering, and they got guys without shield and sword, and presumably they got shield and sword. Yeah, so, and none of these guys have anything that looks like it might be armor. So,
well, if we learned anything from Lake Town, you don't need that much of anything resembling armor to get defense 5.
Well, yeah, maybe, but we'll have to see.
Not that I think these guys should be defense 5. I'm not saying that, but if we look at these guys compared to existing wild men, they are wearing some sort of leather, and what I imagine what it is, fur. It's like basically a fur, like I don't know, like however GW wants to make it. But I would not be shocked to see these guys at defense 5. I'm not saying they should be defense 5, but it wouldn't shock me.
You heard it here, folks. Devin says they're defense 5.
Well, I mean, there you go. Pretty serious pelts there. I mean, probably give.
I only say because of Lake Town, and then the other thing is, Rohan would walk all over these guys because I imagine, like, unless Wolf and the other leader Targ are more expensive, I'd imagine historically have box sets, starter box sets always had balanced numbers on both sides.
No, not in SVG anyways.
Okay, so like the Pelennor box.
Well, so for
not
the
Pelennor.
Warriors, yes. You get roughly equal numbers of warriors, and I think that for the Osgiliath set, the difference was you got a Witch King on a Fell Beast, and you got a Troll.
Yeah, they were heavily. I'm trying to like look it up now. No, so the Troll came from the Gothmog one, and in that
there was the Fall of Osgiliath one.
Was there a ring? Yeah, but there's no ring wraith in there, is there?
Yeah, no, there was if I'm remembering correctly, there was a Witch King.
I am like trying
in which box set?
No, I'm looking up the Battle of Osgiliath box set. Comes with Faramir, Madril, Damrod.
Yeah.
And the Warriors of 12 Warriors, 12 Rangers, and then Gothmog, an armored troll, and Moran and Orcs.
Oh.
And that's it.
Huh.
So like maybe that technically balances out, but it's not game. I mean, yeah, it's not game legal.
Yeah, so
too many models for Gothmog to lead.
Wait, you gotta be right though, because 24. Oh, it's 24 versus 12 and 12. So yeah, and you are correct, Alistair. Actually, that if we had gone off the box set, this would have implied that Gothmog could lead 24 men, 25.
Yeah.
So that means that they're strictly making this not for competitive play. If we go off of just simply the past, then this won't be competitive at all, and they're devising scenarios to make it like balanced out.
I mean, speaking of being unbalanced, take a look at that wild man figure in the upper left, who's like on one leg. I mean, he's literally got only one leg. What's up with that? Look at this guy.
No, he has. It's behind him. You can see the little bit of his foot. He's running.
No, I see none of his foot. He's clearly just propped up on that one leg.
Well, he has an amazing balance. His center of gravity is real off. But no, he's definitely in a running pose.
Yeah, so yeah, it does look like a lot of these guys are in running poses, which
for them it makes sense to be in running poses. For the Rohirrim, I'm glad that most of them are not. Because there's one in a running pose, but they fight in kind of a formation sometimes. Yeah. And so the running pose is like, cool, add one. But I wouldn't want a whole army of running poses.
Here's another guy that's...
yeah, so Rohirrim only have one in running pose.
Now there's...
no, they have two. Yeah, sorry.
Well, is that the same figure? That's the same figure.
Yeah, it's the same model repeated.
What
But
about the guy with the sword on the right side? He kind of has a running pose. He's
Uh,
kind of covered though by the
oh
spearman.
yeah, he is kind of leaping into action there.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, right. Yeah, because this is the same
Does
guy.
it
Well,
say anywhere what everything is made out of, like material wise?
It's
yeah,
plastic. Yeah, it's the new, but it's apparently it's the new plastic.
yeah,
Everything is plastic in it.
Yeah,
yeah.
everything is
Everything's
plastic.
Oh, okay.
It's the new plastic. It's the good stuff.
Good stuff that we just have never gotten to have yet.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean we have it. I mean
yeah.
Oh,
the
okay.
really
All right.
kicks
We
the
have the
out.
good stuff.
I mean
Oh,
the
okay. Okay.
um, but yeah, it's God. I mean, I just really hope we can finally put a bullet in the back of the head of Finecast.
Yeah, I
Um,
think they have done away with that completely.
and here are your two Rohan houses kits with a small amount of fence that is insufficient to keep anything out of anywhere, which
Yep.
I'm kind of baffled by. Um, and here are the rules. So we get the rules manual, the 48-page scenario book, and the quick reference guide.
Ooh, I wonder if you could zoom in on that quick reference guide.
Has
Yeah,
anyone, do you know, Matt, has anyone extrapolated anything from it?
yeah, there have been some posts on. I tried to do this. I couldn't see anything that was when I tried to do this. I couldn't get anything.
Legible.
Somebody did, and from what I recall, what he was able to extract from it wasn't particularly illuminating.
Oh,
So,
okay.
um, so perhaps we'll move on. But all right, so that's the new set. Conspicuously absent from this is any date when this will be released or any price that it will be released for. So who knows?
Yeah.
There's been wild speculation. I've heard everything from $50 to 3,000. But I guess
3,000 sounds about right.
yeah.
Pretty much. Pretty.
But it'll still be a bargain given all the figures that are in.
Yeah.
It's 56 figures at like what, $40 a figure? So
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a cool box set, though.
yeah.
I think of the three that, like this one, the Skiliath box and Pelennor Fields, I think this one seems like to be the coolest. I guess, of course, that's a matter of
I gotta look up
opinion,
the
but
Pelennor Sealed box set because actually I think that's the one with the Fell Beast that you're referring to, Matt.
Yeah, you're probably right.
yeah,
I think in my mind I had conflated I had forgotten all about the Pelennor Fields box set. And I
that
conflated
one that had only two. See, again, those weren't balanced forces either because that had Theoden and the Witch King, and then I think it had 24 Morannons, a troll, and then like a couple, maybe six riders or 12 riders, and then like 12 men of the dead
Yeah,
or
they're
warriors of the dead.
I'm looking at it now. They're not balanced either. Though arguably
So,
you'd say this is more balanced. You're getting a lot more models in the original Pelennor box at the expense of terrain. Whereas
yeah,
the next one, I mean, the Asgiliath one went all out. They were like, give them plenty of terrain, give them plenty of men. It's probably one of their better box sets, to be honest, as far as
yeah,
value.
Yep.
So, and then yeah, the Pelennor one wasn't bad though. I mean, it's just a lot of models.
it's a good
The fact
box
that you
set.
get a Fell Beast in it is actually pretty impressive.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Um, so I guess before we depart this subject, what are people's feelings about the new anime movie? Because I mean, I think the full trailer is now out. I don't know. Have you guys watched that?
I
I don't
did.
think I saw the full one. Are there multiple trailers that have come out?
Yeah, I think there have been smaller ones, and then they put out within the last month they put out kind of the full trailer,
Uh,
which
I think it seems interesting.
starts out with recycled live action shots from the movies, and then kind of gets into the anime stuff.
They're trying to
They
really tie it together. It's like, hey,
yeah.
remember this?
So I mean, one thing that I think is going to change some stuff is that apparently the Hill Tribesmen have either Mumax or some sort of elephant.
So I'm not convinced that they
Yeah.
do. I
No.
so I gotta rewatch the trailer again. Now I haven't watched it in a while. But I remember it being allies. I don't think they are riding them. Like
Yeah,
I think it's an ally that they're bringing in.
that may be. There's something a Mumax like smashing through a Rohirrim for
Absolutely, but I don't see Dunlendings ride them. Now you don't see anything ride them because the only two scenes we get, as far as I remember, is the Mumak is smashing through, but it's rearing, so therefore you can't see the riders. And then you have the baby Mumak. I'm going to call it a baby because it was kind of small, but that the redheaded girl was chasing. I forgot her name, but that's the only two references to a Mumak that I saw in there. And I did remember that they said that they're bringing in like allies. There's like forces to the east or something of that nature, and they're bringing in allies. So like Rohan's being attacked from multiple sides, and they talk about that in the trailer. So I want to watch it again to be 100% sure, but I'm pretty confident that's how that was.
I thought I had a memory of some people riding one of these things in a howdah when they were overrunning the Rohirrim campaign, which of course doesn't answer the question of whether it's a hill tribesman Mumak or an allied Mumak. I have no idea. I do want to see, however, I want to see Helma Hammerhand one punch a Mumak.
Well, he can one punch a man. There now needs to be a rule for that he can execute people with a single punch. That literally happened.
There's there's an old video. I think it was from like some
Okay.
Oh no, it was from Blazing Saddles, right? Where somebody like punches out a horse.
Oh yeah, I do remember some kind of like thing from way back in the day.
Yeah, I think that was Blazing Saddles where somebody punches out a horse, and I really like to see how Hammerhand punch out a Moonback.
All right, so I'm looking at the trailer. I don't have the sound on, but basically there are Mumaks with little glow sticks. As weird as that sounds, now that's if you go 31 seconds in, they've got like glow sticks all over. It's gonna sound weird, but I swear to God, how do I even insert this into the chat? I'm almost like, should I share my screen now?
Yeah, share your screen. I want to see the
no
glow stick.
audio.
All right, I'm gonna share this glow stick here.
And we will vividly describe it for those who are listening on a podcast format rather than watching on YouTube.
All right, so I'm going to how do we
Green button say
share?
share.
You know, I gotta enable it. The host disabled screen sharing.
Oh, hang on a second.
I didn't mention this in our intro at all that we'd be discussing the film, but I guess we haven't done that yet. We haven't done that yet on the podcast. You can just you can allow multiple participants to share, and it'll automatically give that ability.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
It's a little up arrow next to the share. And
that button used to be under security, which is now gone. You should be good now.
Okay. All right. So I will share this.
I'm gonna say, oh yeah, they're the glow stick Mumaks.
Yeah,
those Mumaks,
those are definitely howdahs there, illuminated by the glow stick Mumaks. Those are the ones I think I was remembering.
Yeah, so that's where I'm like, this is definitely so going. So basically here, nothing new.
So
Rohirrim riding.
Was that a flash forward? Because she's talking about what happened at Pelennor Fields. Right? Because back up a bit. Back up a bit more.
Oh, but 200 years before that.
Years before that.
Yeah. Oh, no. 200 years before what we were seeing. So it was all these scenes. It was do you remember the Lord of the Rings? Oh,
yeah, well. I guess when I saw this trailer, I had thought that was Pelennor Fields again, but maybe I'm
no.
wrong.
So this is basically we have flashback from the Lord of the Rings trilogy movies 200 years before. Now we're here. We have mummics with glow sticks.
But I think if the sound was on, if you go to the next scene, I think it's Theoden basically telling.
I will unmute the sound, but I obviously won't be able to play it through the. But no, this is actually current. So okay, so she said there was an older tale, but that's in reference to still the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
I think it's. I think it's a. It said. Did it not just say though in the subtitles that Eowyn's talking?
Yeah, but this
Eowyn.
Yeah.
Is this the other Eowyn? Is there a different Eowyn?
So I think they got the trilogy Eowyn.
Yeah, it's the
to talk about this, and I don't think she's in the film. She's just like the new Galadriel.
Yeah. She's the narrator. But if you back up a second, pause there.
Oh, sorry.
All right, pause there. That figure there on the right
that's our guy.
Yeah, I think that's
Hammer. Was it Hammer?
Hammer.
How? Yeah.
I'm
yeah,
wondering if the guy on the left on the white horse is Helm with the big hammer.
which of course we don't get in the box set, unfortunately. But
Right. And now we're charging Mumax. All right.
So I believe, and I guess we'll get hopefully these characters because we haven't seen this fat guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think he died. That's the guy that Helm kills in like the first scene.
No, he kills. Oh, yeah, it is that guy. Yeah, you're
he
right.
kills.
So
maybe no
this is
model for him.
interesting because I don't think in the story in the movie this guy threw the first punch. This is going to be like the Han Solo thing where
Who threw the first punch?
yeah, exactly, because I think in the book Helm Hammerhand just punches him, just kills him. He's just so insulted about the idea of this guy's son marrying his daughter that he cold cocks him and kills him.
So check this out. These do not look at all like the models we're getting.
These are orcs, I think.
So they're either orcs. Yeah, they're probably orcs just because of all those skull hats. But this also, if this is orcs, then this lends itself again to this idea that what do you call it? That there's allies. They're fighting a multi-part war.
Yeah.
If this is orcs. Now, if this is not orcs, then this is like some kind of Dunland with spears. But I'm imagining you're right that these are orcs. Oh, big mummic scene. Where the hell was it? So the question is, all right, so I can see this implies that the mummics work for the Dunlendings.
Yeah. Yeah, they're on the Dunlending side. Whether they're being ridden by Dunlendings,
I cannot imagine they are. I'm
That's
trying to see if
definitely
these are Haradrim like in the background, but it's really tough. They still look like the orcs.
It's just so hard to it's all just orcs. Everything is actually just an orc.
All right, well, that's blown up a little bit. So I think, yeah, for anyone who can't see this with us on YouTube is already just tuned out. They're like, I don't know what's
like,
going on.
A really bad episode.
They're like,
all right.
I came here to paint.
Moving along. Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. I guess we won't do a play-by-play of them.
Scene on your own.
All right. I just thought of that. I'm like, oh yeah, like half the listeners Spotify. That's funny.
All right. So what just happened here? All right, there we go. I was gonna say we were still looking at Devin's computer. All right. All right, so that's the release.
Yeah.
And what are we talking about next?
All right. So you guys did some games with Rise of Angmar. And
Yes.
What legions have you played so far with this?
So I have played the host of the Witch King Legion twice, and once was against the wolf pack of Angmar.
Please tell me that they're broken and disgusting because I want to play them.
They're not broken and disgusting, but they in the right scenarios and the right situations, they are pretty scary. So I don't know. Do you want me to talk about those games first, or Alistair, what have you played so we know what's on the table here?
Yeah, I have personally played the host of the Witch King. I played host of the Witch King against the Fornost Legion, and then I've also played 2 games of the Arnor Legion against Azog's Legion / Hunters.
Nice.
All right.
That's a good mix. We got a good healthy mix.
Yeah. So why and Devin, what have you played?
I have played in my mind all of the
He's run through all the various
I have gone through all possibilities.
All right. Well, why don't we talk about the host of the Witch King? So I played 3 700-point games, and my list was
just as a very quick recap, I'm sorry. What is the special rules of the host of the Witch King?
All right, so we'll talk about that first. I guess that's a fair thing. So for those of you who didn't catch our last episode, or for some reason
I haven't bought the book yet.
or for some reason have just forgotten what we said. Heaven forfend.
Just very quick recap of it.
All right, so the quick recap. So the composition here is you get the Witch King, who doesn't have the Crown of Morgul, but has special rules in the list that basically give him all the benefits of the Crown of Morgul. So his attack characteristic is 3. He only loses will if he loses a fight. He has the no man can kill me rule, which gives him a +1 to his fight value when engaged against a man model. All ring wraiths can reroll a single d6 when making a casting or resist test. And the terror bubble from spectral heroes goes out to 6 inches rather than 3.
Okay.
And you can get the Witch King, you can get the Tainted, you can get the Dormer Lake, you can get the Shadow of Rudar, who's the new kind of
Yeah. No, I'm
super white guy.
He's like a hero assassin, basically.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, I don't think he's necessarily a hero assassin, but he's a combination spellcaster
Warrior
tank
guy.
guy. You can get well, I'm just going to call him Nasdaq, the Orc Captain, because I think that's his official name now.
Yeah.
Who's the guy who steals stuff. You can get the new Shade at 75 points. You can get Barrow Whites. You can get Angmar Orc Captains, Orc Shamans, Orc Warriors, and Angmar Warg Riders. And you can get Specters. And the list that I took, and we'll compare it to yours, Alice. Sure. The list I took was I took the Wish King, like fully kitted out with I think like 15 will. The Tainted on a horse. I took the Shadow of Rudar. I took the Shade. And those were my 4 heroes. And I think I had 1 Dead March Spectre, 1 Warg Rider, and then everything else was orcs of various flavors. And I think I had 44 figures in it. And I did this because I wanted to try out the new Shade. I wanted to try out the Shadow, and I wanted to see, I wanted to throw more than 1 ring wraith in there to see, kind of how it all worked together with the Shade and the extra die. So what was your loadout, Alisher?
Yeah, I want to say I played 650. I have the list pulled up, but I'm pretty sure it's 650. It's the Witch King on horse, pretty standard kit out. The Tainted on a horse, the Shade, and an Orc Captain on a Warg. I have 2 Specters, 2 Wargs, and then just a smattering of Orcs, 1 with a banner. So 42 models in my list at 650. Generally similar composition though.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, remind me what you had the Witch King, you
Witch
had
King, Tainted, Shade, or Captain on a Warg.
okay. Witch King
Yeah.
Tainted.
Why
Okay.
the Tainted? Just curious.
I wanted to kind of see if the other wraiths made well. First of all, the Shade kind of is a wraith tool, so I probably wanted more than 1 wraith, and then B, I wanted to see if getting the reroll was worthwhile in the list.
Okay.
So out of curiosity, let's start off with. So I played again. I played 1 actual Angmar mirror match against somebody else who had pretty much the same loadout I did, except his heroes were. He also had the Witch King. He also had the Tainted, although the Tainted was on foot. He had more mounted stuff, and he had a Barrow White, and I think he had a Captain. Oh no, actually, I think it was just the 3 of them, and then he ended up with more figures than I did. But he had a bunch more. Yeah, he had the 3. He had the Tainted, the Witch King, and a Barrow White, and then just a bunch more figures. And a bunch more mounted figures. He had a lot of mounted figures in that list. And there was 1, and then I also played this against the Wolf Pack, which was like 4 Wild Ward chieftains, like 5 or 6 werewolves, and then 30 something wargs. And I think there were like 42 figures in that list too. So those are my 2 opponents. Who are your opponents when you played this list, Alisher?
I just played 1 game with it, and I played against the Fornost
Oh,
Legion.
that's right. That was Fornost.
Yeah.
And who was in the Fornos Legion?
It was Anor, Glorfindel, and then I want to say just a Dunedain.
Okay. So let me get your thoughts on some of the figures here. Um, what did you think, first of all, about the Shade?
I honestly like the shade. So part of it was maybe my perception is influenced by the fact that Fornos does shoot pretty well. I mean, usually, a third of you're maxing out elf archers essentially. So I was happy to have it because of that. Um, it was a little bit weird. I don't remember. I think we rolled the unique scenario pool, and I want to say I think we ended up playing Clash by Moonlight. I'm pretty sure. And it was because my opponent got rid of, we played veto, but my opponent got rid of um assassination. And I think it was like it's an odd thing where like in Fog of War, if you use the shades like actual capability, you run the risk of just losing victory points on the board because they just make the shade their like target. So I didn't want to do that. So I mean, I only mention that because it like there is a degree of the shade playing the way that the shade does kind of manipulate how you approach certain scenarios from that perspective. But um I personally like the shade. I don't it has two attacks, right?
Yeah, it has two attacks.
So it's I like the shooting buff because that's something I hate just having to kind of go chin first into shooting, and then B having a hero that's reasonably high courage and has two attacks that I can kind of just throw in as a big buffer. I really liked. What was your experience with the shade?
I would not take the Shade again at 75.
Really?
Yeah. I so I mean part of this may be that I've only got two data points and there wasn't any significant shooting in either of those armies. Um, I mean, obviously the Wolves didn't have any shooting, and then I think there were like a handful of Orc archers in the Angmar list that I was facing, and I never even bothered to. I in neither game did I use any of the Shade special abilities, with the exception of his +1 courage bubble, which was used
Mm.
in the first game against Angmar to get people because I basically had Courage 3 orcs, whereas he had Courage 2 orcs, which was a significant disadvantage to him. But I'm not sure I wanted to pay 75 points for that.
Okay.
Well, I
All
mean,
right. Fair
but
enough.
the thing is, when we put shades in a list or some sort of anti-shooting tech in a list, it's kind of like you played, I don't know, what's his name, the guy who helps you with deployment reinforcement roles. It's like you played that, but
Yeah,
then you
yeah.
played to the death, and then you're like, he was kind of pointless.
Yeah, but I mean the uh, the shade basically I mean brought nothing to the game in the first one that a Warhorn couldn't have brought, other than
Did you
12.
use the +1 casting thing?
No, never had an opportunity or really a need to use it.
Okay.
Uh,
Well, so
I,
why?
I
Like,
never used it the whole time.
what does
Uh,
he do? He strips the shade of wounds, right, to do that.
it strips the shade of
Yeah.
wounds.
So you never had a need to cast that, but I mean, did your opponents have heroes that like needed to be shut down, and you like how many races did you have? You had the Witch King and Tainted,
Witch King
right?
and the Tainted. Yeah.
So did your opponent not have like dual threats where like you needed to shut down multiple? Well, I mean, not the werewolves, right? Like, so they're not
So
big enough.
in the first, I mean, basically the way this kind of works out, unless you're like playing in some sort of bubble scenario, and I wasn't playing in a bubble scenario in either case, I had to spread out. Your shade's only going to be near one of your two ring wraiths because your ring
Fair.
wraiths need to go in different
Is it a
directions.
6 inch bubble for that
Yeah,
effect? That
it's a 6 inch
okay,
effect.
okay.
And you know, I never had an instance. I mean, and part of this was like, you get the reroll, you get a free reroll with the caster anyway. And I never had an instance where I'm like, I'm gonna, kind of put the shade at risk to get an additional +1. I mean, it could be that later in the game this is gonna matter more, and it just didn't happen to shake out that way. But
Fair
I
enough.
guess that's part of the problem I had with these two data points is that um I never had an instance where I needed to use either of these things, and I paid a lot of points for that shade. And literally, it ended up being like a mediocre combat piece, right? It was a 2 attack
Interesting.
fight one Blades of the Dead combat piece for 75 points. And I really would have been much happier with, a Barrow White and 4 more orcs.
I just wonder if you had two targets who were ripping through your lines that you needed to shut down at the same time and you need to reliably do it, then which the werewolf army won't have. And then because the threat is the army, it's not the
Well, I mean,
heroes.
the werewolf army will have it because you got all sorts of werewolves you got to shut down.
Yeah, but you're not gonna get a +1 to your cast roll when they can't resist. Like
No, that's
you don't
true.
need
I
that.
mean, they have a bunch of, yeah, but I mean, you may need the +1 to the roll just to get it, right?
That's fair.
Maybe, but I don't know how much you're neutralizing an entire werewolf army.
No,
Well,
you're not. I mean, but
but
that's part of the problem, right? Um, but I mean, on the other hand, I could get a Barrow Wight that could just, throw another paralyze in there. Instead of getting a +1 on the transfix, I could, have the transfix go off, have him spend the will on it, and then cast paralyze,
so and
right?
that's where it goes into the second point is Alisher's experience is like if we're planning based on just what you went up against, and 100%, you don't need anti-shooting tech. But if we're going to a tournament where shooting is a reasonable expectation, then yeah, half your games you may not deal with a shooting army, but when you do, so the question is basically, I mean, would a shooting army have ripped you apart in the situations that you had had?
Right. Well, I mean, I guess, would that -1 have saved me the additional 5 or 6 orcs that I could have bought had I bought
A Barrow White
or,
with, and that's a fair
or a
point.
captain
That is actually a fair point. I'll take that.
or a captain.
Um, so then I guess you're also weighing in on the +1 courage, which 75 points.
I mean, that was useful in my first game, but it was, I don't know about the
Hmm.
75 points. I
I,
mean,
Fair enough.
I could agree with that assessment. So unless you're using one of those other two components like heavily, uh, you can almost think of it as you're paying 30 points for the Warhorn, and so the 50 points is the anti-shooting tech, and then that ring wraith gimmick. The shade does nothing else, right? Like that's all he does, right?
right. Yeah, he's got the
Mhm.
3 things.
So then I guess it would be considered overcosted for that shooting gimmick. You're right, because you could just afford a couple more orcs and then like it
Yeah.
with a Barrow Wight. So you're probably right. He's probably a little overpriced, actually.
But you know what else he has is he has the remote casting ability where you can use him as like a cell tower to cast spells, but that didn't end up mattering either. I mean, the
That
issue
has
is,
limited application because the race can move and fire spells, so they can jump in,
right,
jump out.
and they have to be within 6 inches of him to use it. So it's
Yeah, that's extremely limited application. I don't. You could maybe set up some kind of funky situation, but you're right.
right. So anyway, I'm not sure the shade's in the worth it category for me, but um the Shadow of Rudahar, on the other hand, is actually I found that to be a very useful piece.
Okay.
Um
And he's
uh
75 points too, right? Or
he's 80, I think.
80. Okay.
So he's expensive, but he's actually stat wise, he's quite good. He's fight 5, he's 2 attacks, and he's defense 7, so he's a tank. And his spells are really annoying. Um, just because you have to deal with that, you just kind of one dice a turn with him, and every once in a while you roll a 6. And I mean, what I was doing was I was using him uh to curse the Witch King in our game, and eventually rolled a 6 and way all the fate. Um, because it got through. But um, he's a useful guy and a useful combat hero, and with 2 wounds, 2 fate, 2 might. Um, with his Blaze of the Dead rule, he's pretty useful. I mean, the real question is one of the questions that's out there, I guess, is whether or not his -1 courage stacks with the Ring Wraith
What's the
-1.
wording on it? Typically, Lord of the Rings, nothing stacks, but
So we went through it, and
oh, you went through it in the previous.
rules is written, it does not stack. That much is
Okay.
but there's been a lot of commentary online that it was intended to stack, and
That would be defy everything this game has ever done. They have never wanted stuff to stack.
yeah.
I mean, that like yeah, there was a day where something did stack and it was like disgusting. I forgot what it was that actually did stack.
Remember, you only pick one figure that gets this, and that figure has to be within 6 inches of the shadow who's not mounted. So, I mean, it's not like a game-ending thing. It's just,
Yeah.
it's an additional debuff to one guy. I mean, I think it should stack, but I mean, rules is written, it doesn't. And then
Which I can
especially
understand
if
it.
it doesn't hit you.
It kind of is a negated rule because of the Legion. You're going to naturally put him in. Already
Exactly.
has Harbinger, so the intention of stacking for just one thing. Okay, as you restated, I'm like, all right, that makes sense. Where it might have been intended that way.
Yeah.
So
Um, but yeah, I mean that and the -1 fate, uh, can really give like a named ring wraith a hard time if you get him within 6 inches
yeah.
of that named ring wraith. Um, especially since he's got curse, so he can just be, pulling off fate on those things anyway.
Oh, yeah. Wow, that's pretty cool. An anti-ring wraith tech right there.
Yeah. Um, but anyway, so he's fun. So what were your thoughts on this list, Alisher?
I mean, I like the list a lot. I kind of figured as I was building it that I generally think that 650 to 700 is where it starts, like not struggling, but you're going to, when you're facing against lists, you're going to have more problems that you can't necessarily shut down as easily. I mean, you are stuck with a fight five. You have fight five heroes with only one of them having strike. So, again, I think Fornos playing against it may be slightly skewed in the sense that like these are two lists that are meant to be pretty 50-50 against each other in a sense. I mean, everything having resistant to magic kind of makes it a little bit more of a hassle to effectively get your like total bang for the buck out of the rates. I really like how it plays. I think it has a real like I feel like it plays pretty like it has a synergy to it, which I personally enjoy. I mean, I feel like I probably got more value out of the shade, so I don't because I was playing into shooting and it clashed by Moonlight at that with +1. So I think that I felt like I got something out of that, but I certainly understand in combat. I didn't end up using the +1 cast thing either, just because it didn't really feel like it came up a lot. Um, I really like the list. Interesting thing though, again, playing against Fornos, so everything gets resistant to magic. So presumably then Glorfindel gets 3 free dice to resist
Because he's fortified
because
naturally.
he has
Fortified. Yeah,
fortify
yeah, he does.
and resistant. So I mean, like in that legion, then Glorfindel is like almost feels like almost impossible. I mean, 3 free dice and 3 in the
You're not
store.
getting a single spell through to him. Like
Like
you wouldn't
that
even
was
try.
like that is actually like crazy. How magically resistant Glorfindel is in that legion. So, um, I mean it's a good list. I like playing it a lot. It's fun. I think I've seen evidently I feel like it shines a lot in the lower points. So Caleb, who was on a few weeks ago for our Articon preview, he took it to a 6 round 300 point tournament and just he felt like it was like really really good at that range. So 300 is obviously very rare, but something at the lower points, it plays exceptionally well. He ended up winning the tournament in all 6 of his games.
What did he have in the list at 300 points, out of curiosity?
I think if I recall correctly, he just took the Witch King and a Barrow White. He either did that or he took the Witch King and the Shadow of Brudar. I can't. He played again, had a mirror match at the tournament, and I can't remember if he had the Shadow or his opponent had the Shadow.
Yeah. I'm guessing it's probably the Barroway, or else that army gets really small.
Yeah. So, um, no, it's a really cool. I like how they made the list. It makes sense. It plays well together. Um, it's neat. I would say.
Cool.
Fornost is also like playing against Fornost. I mean,
Yeah,
Fornost is a real. I think it doesn't take much to see that Fornost is a well put together legion. I think it is It's definitely probably the leading legion of the ones in the book supplement for higher points. Um, I think one of the few magic things I was able to get off was I killed Aenor's horse with a black dart pretty early into the game, so I didn't have to worry about 5/7 with him. But um, it's a good list.
yeah. Um, so I mean, I played against the Wolf Pack list, which is it's basically Wild Warg chieftains, um, werewolves, and then wargs, and the wargs knock people down when they charge, so they're like cavalry wargs.
It's probably how they should be.
Yeah, probably. And so that was an interesting legion. I mean, it it was the problem it had against me was terror, but he had enough chieftains and enough uh of the werewolves who were like courage 5, down to 4. So he could reliably get heavy hitters in, and then he had a whole bunch of wargs, and so somebody would pass something and get in. But he had issues with getting stuff into combat, but when he would get stuff into the combat, he would generally rip me to shreds. Whereas I could, kind of screen him off, and there were just so many targets for spells that it was hard to deal with my, I basically have like well, I have one mounted combat hero in the Witch King, and I had the Shadow who, basically went toe to toe with a chieftain, fortunately through a doorway, which really helped him out. But um, that is an interesting and I think fun list to play. It's incredibly mobile, because the Wild Warg chieftains have march, so they can just zoom around with these packs of wargs, and they've got plenty of might floating around. At 700 points, he had like 3 chieftains, so he had 9 points of might because you get the extra point of might with the leader. And
Wait, each chieftain's 2 points of might or 3?
each chieftain is 2, and then
So
your
he's 7.
whichever one is your leader gets an extra point of like might, will,
Yeah,
and haste.
so 7 points of might for that. Then
No, because he had 4 chieftains, one of
he had
which
4 chieftains. Oh, okay,
yeah.
so
Um uh yeah, so that was, I mean, that's I think that's an interesting list. So I think you're gonna have fun with that, Devin. I mean, there are gonna be some situations where, I mean, because there's no strike in the list, um
oh yeah,
you're gonna have problems with, you're gonna have problems kind of shutting down the big heroes,
you basically gotta get lucky and hope they fail a
or
roll.
just kill the rest of the army
Yeah,
out from around them.
feed them wargs, like
Yeah,
whatever big
exactly.
hero.
I mean, you do have this howl special rule that gives you +1 fight across the board, so you can get, I mean, you can get a lot of fight 6 in that circumstance, but for 1 turn.
Yeah,
Um, but
probably use that on more of a killing enemies. Well, I mean, I guess it depends which army you're fighting. So yeah,
yeah,
They
I mean,
do
it also
not
gives,
get +1 attacks to the dual roll, right?
they do not.
Or do they?
So they have 40
It's
mil
just
baits as
knockdown.
1 a dice. Yeah. So ideally, a spear wall will crush them. You'd charge a warg into
Okay.
4 guys, and it would be a problem.
but what you do is you just you surround the spear wall before you go in, so you're
Yeah.
charging it from all sides.
Yeah.
You don't just kind of go wall to wall. You try and get
Certainly so.
Yeah, you try and get him in a situation where his flanks aren't covered, and then sweep around it. And you can also get fight 4 wargs for a turn that do that will knock down their opponent, which can do a lot of damage as well.
So from what I'm hearing, though, I mean, they tore you to shreds. If you didn't have terror, how do you think that game would have gone? I mean,
Oh, I just would have been eaten alive.
so
Um,
is that a mark that the Legion is? Well, I guess you also admittedly didn't have any combat heroes able to take down this many chieftains,
Yeah,
and
I know that. I mean, that's
so
the problem. Yeah, that's the problem I was in
okay,
is, he just saturated I mean, he just had more guys I needed to stop than spells I had to stop him.
yep,
Um, but I mean, I I did end up winning the game. So
yeah.
it's not like the thing's impossible to beat, but it was a scary
It was a
and
downhill.
yeah.
I mean, it's kind of almost there's a list I used to play where I would actually spam Urukai captains and then put pike blocks behind them. So it'd be like 5 Urukai captains with pikes and stuff. But it's kind of like you're running a bunch of mini heroes instead of like, or medium sized heroes instead of like 2 mega heroes. And that
Right.
is annoying for particularly that list. So, because your list is designed to shop mega heroes, not medium, spamming medium sized ones.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Exactly. And I mean, and it's kind of interesting because my guys can kind of fight his wargs as long as they're not outnumbered. But with his mobility, I mean, we were also playing divide and conquer, so he was able to just like gang up on like one
yeah,
half of my army.
kind of already bad
Um,
scenario for that.
yeah. Although I mean, fortunately he ganged up on the Witch King's corner and like sent everything after the Witch King, and the Tainted and the Shadow went and like took the center objective and the
Yeah.
right hand objective, which is why I ended up winning in the end. Because the Witch King side just kind of died. But I,
You held him off.
objectives with the other stuff. But I think actually in that particular scenario, if what he'd done is just take both of his sides and just march to the middle, I don't think there's anything I could have done about it. Because he just would have occupied it with this massive of wargs, and he wouldn't have had to charge me at that point. It's just, me trying to get through him.
Well, I think he
Mm.
would have wanted to charge you anyway, given that half his bonus is tied around that.
Well, yeah,
But
I mean, he would have
yeah,
wanted to, but it really
yeah,
wouldn't matter if he was failing all his courage tests because I
he
still
would
would have to hack my way through
have.
like four deep of warg to to get within 3 inches of the center objective. So, um, yeah, so that's an interesting list. So tell us a little about Arnor, Alisher, because I've been afraid to play it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I played 2 games, like I said, at 800 points against Azog's Legion, Azog's Hunters, kind of allied. The first game was retrieval. The second game was reconnoiter. I mean, I was honestly like pleasantly surprised in the sense that I think on the onset of all of this supplement release, I think I've heard a lot of people say that Arnor is a very boring army to play. And while that certainly may be true at the lower points, at the higher points when you're able to like get everything essentially, it's really interesting to see like all of the little synergies that are happening on the table, um which I thought was really neat. Malbeth, I think Malbeth getting foresight really like changed the dynamic of Arnor, at least from like the perspective of like looking at the list, and that it's not a might starved list, and now you have a lot of manipulation over like priority sequencing, which is um really, it was something that I kind of, as I played both of the games, realized I could have exploited better than I did, and something that I kind of see as an opportunity moving forward playing the army, that's one of the tricks that you can really um use effectively. uh I mean, at 800 points, I kind of, my general sense was that um like I was kind of interested to see how the list would do against armies with big heroes, and Azog's Legion is a good kind of representation of that. I played against Azog and Bolg, and really, as far as a big issue that I've experienced with horde out style armies with like cheap heroes is that if big heroes really get going, you have nothing in the army that stops them. And um the 5-up saves and the heroes, like having multiple small combat heroes, I think really offsets the capacity of large like enemy heroes, in the sense that sure, Azog and Bolg were able to do just about whatever they want on the board, like especially with Azog, there's nothing I can do to like consistently kill Azog.
Mm.
Like I throw one of my strikers into him, they're fight 5. I have to call the strike. He gets master battle for free. Like there's no consistent way of killing Azog.
Well, I mean,
Um,
did you have Argadir in the list?
I did, yeah.
I mean, one thing you could do is just throw him into Azog, keep him within 6 inches of Malbeth, and just call heroic defense.
That's true. That's true. The 4-up save on the heroes is really, really nice. I pulled that against Bolg. There was my objective was kind of nearing a position where it would have been exposed for Bolg or one of the other orcs to grab it. And I like blocked up a narrow channel and essentially did that with Argadir. And like there's a real consistency, or you're able to really consistently sandbag big heroes between Argadir being able to call the defense and then the 4-up saves in addition to his fate. So the army sandbags big heroes really well, as far as I'm concerned, which was a very interesting experiment to run. I think I probably benefited in the sense that obviously all of the Arnorians outfight all of the orcs. Um, so it's possible that if I played against something else with big heroes that had fight 4 or fight 5, maybe dwarves, for example, I would have a different experience altogether. But I was really actually genuinely surprised how dynamic I felt the army played. Now,
Yeah.
I like I said, I don't know how that's gonna look at 650 when you lose some of those named heroes, presumably. But when you can play all of them, I feel like there's a whole bunch of little things that are going on all at the same time, which is really cool.
Well, keep in mind though, the complaint that Arnor is boring to play was before this release. So, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, no. I mean, I've heard it a couple times from people who aren't getting it. So I mean, I've heard it a couple times since the release that people are
Oh.
saying that they think Arnor might be boring. I mean, playing a man horde with small 80-point heroes isn't like that's not for everyone,
Yeah.
especially when you have like big dynamic heroes that are so easily accessible in other lists. So it's entirely possible that it's not that the army like is really non-dynamic at all, so much as it's just people don't want to play 80-point heroes.
Yeah.
I thought the
But
reason that it was boring post-release was because you could just crush all of your opponents with one hand tied behind your back.
I mean, it's just I guess maybe it's so good.
I mean, you know, the reason I have hesitated to play it so far is I have not wanted to subject any of my opponents to it. Um,
Okay.
and I'm not kidding. Because I've got the army and I'm painting this stuff up, and I am really hesitating about whether to take this thing to a tournament because I think it just runs over the opposition. I mean, look, I guess it's historically accurate because as we all know, Arvedui uh, crushed the host of the Witch King with his +1 hatred, destroyed the Witch King's armies, sacked Forward Wraith, and then put the Witch King's head up on a pike. Oh
Yeah.
no, wait, that didn't happen. But yeah, I mean that's also, by the way, like the big deterrent to taking the host of the Witch King army is that if you run into Arnor, you're just dead. There's
Yeah.
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
nothing you can do.
I
Um,
watched someone else play a game. It was like the Karn Doom Legion into Arnor, and it's just, I mean, that is actually properly Carnage. Like Karn Doom has not a chance against Arnor in
I don't
any
think
way, shape, or
Doom has
form.
a chance against almost anybody.
Well,
Like,
no, it doesn't. It's not a good Legion, but like them getting +1 to wound on top of it all is just because I mean Karn Doom's Angmar, so
yeah. I mean, the way these things work out, it's like, you know, the legions of Arnor should have just conquered Middle Earth. Certainly at the time they were around, when like the only thing that was in their way had the Angmar keyword in it. Um, but
they didn't develop hatred for them until they got slaughtered. That's when they
well, I
should have.
mean,
Dude.
it's they shouldn't actually have a hatred special rule for Angmar. They should have just like the contempt special rule. You know, why are you bothering to contest this field? Do you not know that no host of evil can kill me? I mean,
I I actually kind of wonder why. Like, I mean, I get the hatred Angmar because they got killed by Angmar, but like that would almost imply like if you took that and put that across all of the armies of Middle Earth and armies that, why doesn't Gondor have like hatred Mordor? Or like, if you wanted to just keep applying that. So I'm glad they don't, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying like it is kind of weird.
Well, they
So
don't yet. I mean, who knows what's going to happen in the new edition? But
hatred everywhere.
True.
that is a problem, right? I mean, that's part of the reason why this particular matchup of Arnor against Angmar is so unbalanced is because of hatred. And
Yeah.
hatred is just such a devastating special rule that
That you get for free.
it almost guarantees you a win when you play the opponent that you hate.
Yeah.
And that's just not, I mean,
It's not fun at all.
not fun.
I remember
Yeah.
at that tournament where I kept playing Dunlendings, and because whoever played me had to play Rohan, and I would just wipe them out repeatedly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just really bad.
It really is a problem. And I mean, I don't know. I hope we don't get a lot of new hatred things because that's the thing you never want to have happen is you walk up to the table and be like, oh, I'm playing Angmar, or I'm playing my Angmar. I mean, like, oh, I'm playing Arnor. Well, I'm just gonna go get a beer. Just give you the 12-0.
And
Save us all a bunch of time.
And when you've forced Matt to get a beer, then
Yeah,
you've
exactly.
really done something
Right. I
right.
think I'm gonna go and take up drinking.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Really nothing
do you
for it
think
but alcoholism.
do you think now post supplement that Arnor is good at any points level, or do you think that it still starts capping out at the higher points? That's my hesitance. I want to like I'm a little bit pensive about the higher points, but it's entirely possible. I just haven't played it.
I don't know. I haven't scaled it up all the way, but just I mean, so part of the reason that it's so strong is it's got the really cheap, really effective warriors,
Yeah.
and that scales, right? You
Mhm.
know, so I got another 200 points of really cheap warriors.
Yeah.
Really cheap fight for spear supported uh defense 6 dudes. And backed up by 9-point fight 4 guys with spears and shoot 3 bows.
Yeah.
I think at
That's fair.
800 people, I think the problem is if you can take down Malbeth and Artavi, then you pretty much cripple the list entirely, and then the race starts showing up at 800. I imagine so assassinating them and targeting them gets much easier.
That's so hard to do with the 4-up save that they now have.
True. So you're right. I am talking about a more historical component to it. So yeah, there is that. And I think the only other thing is like their inability to hold back, as Alisher mentioned, the Azogs of the world, which show up in more abundance at those. Like if I were to play the Fornost army against it, would they have an answer to Arnor and Glorfindel ripping through stuff? Well, Glorfindel probably doesn't hurt them that much. It was strength 4. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
You put Argadir into one of them, and then you just put an endless stream of spearmen into the other.
I mean, this is fair.
Is really what you do.
It's just as long as you haven't lost Artavi, because I mean, if you break, I mean, it is an endless stream. I get the idea behind that, but I'm just theorizing on why you don't in current times see them at 800 points, because you don't like even the Nova 1,000.
Well, I think part of it is just they weren't available.
Yeah, it's cost.
Yeah,
part of the reason.
It's cost availability, and the fact that so they used to be really effective but really boring, right?
Yeah.
And you have to be like, yeah, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna play this game and I'm gonna win in a very boring fashion.
Yeah.
I mean, I had an Arnor army, I didn't take it, and largely it was because I didn't want to spend a lot of money to go to a tournament and play 5 games with Arnor. But
what a sad life Arnor lives.
Yeah, but now they got bells and whistles to kind of make it fun. So maybe I'll do that.
And now Matt doesn't want to take him to tournaments because he doesn't want to crush the hosting dreams of his opponents.
It depends on the tournament, right? I mean, I'll take him to Nova.
All right.
but I'm not sure I want to take these guys to a local tournament and be like, "Hi, this is my first game."
Legions
Yes.
of Arnor.
And yeah, all right. So you're gonna be playing against Arnor, and I have more models than you. They're better than you, and 1/3 of the time that you actually manage to kill one of my figures, it won't work.
Actually,
I mean, this is fair.
on the subject of that 4-up save, you said you had a Dunedain on the in your army, right? No, you didn't put one in.
No. I played against the Dunedain in the Fornos Legion. I
I
didn't
got
play
it.
it. Are
Can
Dunedain
Arnor
in?
bring Dunedain? Can they bring him?
Yeah, they
Yeah, they
can.
can.
Yeah.
So I'm
But
kind
they
of
don't get to attack.
curious, and that's the reason they probably are worthless in this respect. But no, I guess you'll just take captains. I'm just kind of wondering if, like, because they get the 4-up save, can they be a bit more grindy? But probably not.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
The captain's so effective. For 55 points, you have a D7 model that gets free 4-up saves.
Yeah, 2 points of might, 2 wounds. Yeah, no, they just take the captain.
Yep.
So
And by the way, Arnarth isn't a bad hero. I mean, because he can lead regular guys. He's the archer guy. He's the first chieftain of
I
the group.
played him at 800. I can't imagine not playing 800 without him.
Yeah.
why is that?
I mean,
But
A, he's a second striker, but B, I mean, he's a shooting hero. Like, I'm just the alternative. I guess he's 25 more points than a captain, but I feel like he brings 25 points of value.
yeah, because he's got the bow, he's got strike, and he's got 3 might.
Okay.
And he's courage 5, which is
Yep.
technically high for the army.
Yep.
Well, do we have any other legions to talk about? Any more points before we move on to the last thing?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, then I guess what future podcast episodes we'll keep bringing up experiences until theoretically I predict that this book is dropping. The new book is dropping in Christmas. So I don't know if you guys share that sentiment, but just based on all the evidence that I'm seeing.
I can't imagine it's going to be significantly earlier than or later than the movie premiere, and the movie premieres mid-December.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, then I guess Rings of Power is the only last thing. Now, this doesn't really affect our game. It doesn't seem like it ever will affect our game, other than maybe hype it brings toward the Lord of the Rings.
Oh, wait, I can't imagine that license. I mean, maybe the license isn't going to go to Games Workshop, but I can't imagine the miniatures gaming license for that thing isn't going to go somewhere.
I mean, if it does go anywhere else, it isn't going to assist us very much.
Well,
Because I think that just anything in the likeness of Lord of the Rings on a 25 mil scale is just all GW. Somehow they hold it hostage, even though it's completely different. That's my assumption. Because most of these movies, they make money in the toys. Like a lot of that's a lot of their money comes from. I don't know why a toy company wouldn't have picked up on Rings of Power yet. I mean, let me see. Rings of Power miniatures.
Yeah, that's a good.
Is this a thing? Like,
yeah.
No, not
yet. Anyway,
not that I see. I see third-party knockoffs. If you want to go buy essentially illegal armies or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, somebody had a really beautifully painted Adar figure.
Yeah, I'm looking at that actually. Rings of Power Minute. This YouTube. He did really good on it actually.
Yeah, no, it looks really good. And there's plenty of space there. I mean, Devin, Alex, I know you haven't watched it yet, and Devin, I know you're only a couple episodes into it, but I'm up to episode 7 now, which is the current episode. And boy, when you get to the siege of Eregion, that's some SPG battle that's going on there.
Nice. All right.
There's some nice stuff. I mean, there's a great scene with a troll where like you see each of the brutal power attacks go off. It really is. There's a hurl, there's a rend, there's a barge.
So they made that troll like sufficiently gruesome to show it off, because I know in the Lord of the Rings films.
Yeah. And this is also mean, people were saying like the first season, oh, it's nice that we finally have a fantasy series we can watch with our little kids. Yeah, not so much when you get to these last few episodes. I mean, there are people getting bitten in half. There are arms getting hacked off. You know,
Oof.
this is
Jeez, all
some
right.
there's some brutal stuff
Is
that's
that like toward the end of the season?
yeah, it's for the end of the season. So
Okay.
the last three episodes are the Seeds of Eregion and what's going on. I don't want to give you too many spoilers, but um uh but I don't know, I'm really enjoying the season. And I mean, they put out the first three episodes together, I think because they are the slowest episodes. They're necessarily the slowest episodes because there's a lot of table setting that needs to be done for kind of the rest of the
Yeah,
season.
I did notice that it was kind of slower, so I was kind of like, all
Yeah.
right, well,
Yeah, I mean, which is, I mean, I'm fine with this, by the way. I know there are some people who like
yeah,
don't have the attention span for this, but I'm fine with it because I really enjoy the kind of the 3 hours of table setting of all these like plots that
hmm,
like happen. But I mean, everything kind of accelerates as you get
yeah,
further down the line. And I mean, not going to get too many spoilers in, but once Anatar shows up, there's a lot of really fun stuff that kind of goes on. That's not, I mean, they're not battle scenes
hmm,
type stuff with Anatar, but you really get to understand why Sauron is, kind of the trickster that he is. It's very much the trickster Sauron as opposed to the, like disembodied eye up at the top of a
yeah.
tower
Which
Sauron.
I'm glad they're bringing that in. I mean,
Yeah.
like that's exactly what I was hoping to see from him. I mean, I got to the point where he changes his look, and I forgot. Now that I've seen it only 2 weeks ago, maybe or a week ago, I forgot why he changed his look to the blonde look. He went through that portal and then like came back out as the
Well,
blonde.
yeah, I mean that's to persuade Celebrimbor because he
Yeah.
sells himself to Celebrimbor as I'm an
Oh,
avatar of
I'm
the
a.
Valor.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right.
Um,
Um,
which,
mm,
Haldir was not going to be able to pull off.
yeah. No, I
Um,
completely understand. That makes sense.
yeah,
So I forget, I just remember that.
yeah.
So it's it'd be a real shame if this never goes anywhere as far as our game. But what I would hope might happen is SBG magazine. I don't think they're gonna do this, but it would be cool if SBG magazine came up with like profiles for these, and then people could decide whether or not you
Right.
wanted
Yep.
them to be legal or not.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, we've got two more Ents that could be, named characters.
mhm.
We got, we have Barrow-wights who I guess are, Barrow-wights.
Yeah.
Um, I actually painted my shadow of Rudar up as one of those
They
Barrow-wights.
looks pretty similar, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, and there's Damrod the troll, the Damrod the super troll, and various others. There's lots
Wait,
of
so that it had a name?
yeah.
Damrod?
Its name's Damrod. Yeah,
Huh. That's gonna be
you may not
conflicting.
have gotten there. You will meet Damrod.
Okay.
Um,
Huh.
Damrod is a character with lines.
Hmm.
So
Oh, so they actually finally let troll speak.
yeah,
Oh,
this
okay.
is. I mean, this is very much a like birder type troll.
Yeah. Okay. And that's
Interesting.
I know in the Hobbit was but all right. Well then yeah, I haven't gotten far enough. I'll probably actually watch another episode tonight. Um
Yep.
so get through this. It is 8 episodes. Oh, the last one comes out on October
Austin's next
3rd.
week.
Yep.
Austin's next week.
So
And I mean, we have actually there's enough density in these episodes that we have actually started watching them twice. Because
Okay.
there's stuff we don't pick up on the first time that we
yeah.
pick up on the second time. There's a lot of detail in these episodes that are kind of making the plots spin, and there's a lot of stuff that if you also can't like half watch this. Like
Mhm.
normally I paint while I'm watching TV. I can't paint while I watch this because
There's a lot going on in the
there's too
actual.
much subtlety of what's going on.
Well, what I will say is that it seems like the ratings for this show are a lot better. It seems like they've gone up the favorability of it, which is good because actually, although this may not impact our game, just simply showing studio heads that Lord of the Rings still has a lot of legs to it,
Yeah.
may have them produce
Yeah.
more. So
Yeah.
hopefully not remaking the original trilogy. It's still timeless. We're
Right.
good.
Yeah. No, we don't need to do that.
Yep.
Well,
Just keep on the
by the way, one thing I would recommend when you're about halfway through the season, is go back and rewatch the first season. Because there's a whole bunch that's in the first season that um that is like foreshadowing for the second season that we didn't realize. And the whole thing about the first season was like, who's Sauron and stuff like that. You go back and having seen how everything unspooled and unspools through the first few episodes of the second season, you go back and watch the first season, and you're like, how could we not have seen like all of this stuff that
yeah.
sets up
Interesting. Okay.
Halbrand as the because literally there are like lines in there that are are just such obvious foreshadowing for the second season. But they're only obvious when you get there. So, but it's
That'll be interesting.
fun to do.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I kind of enjoyed the journey of, I guess, how Sauron reforms himself is an interesting
Yeah,
take
yeah,
on that. And so then seeing it from his perspective of how he got there, because that was the most random encounter ever where he ran into Galadriel in that way.
yeah.
Seeing it from her perspective was just so he's just out here on a boat. Chill. Like,
Yeah.
what
Well,
is okay.
he has that line when he picks her up where like she gets to the boat and he's like, "Stop. Your fate's about to turn. Decide what you want to do next." And that line made no sense when you first saw it in the first episode. And
Yeah.
then when you go back, having seen the first episode of the second season, and you go back and you see that again, and you're like, "Oh, right."
Yeah.
It's exactly why that line was there.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
didn't
no.
tie it in as well in the first season,
What you weren't
unfortunately.
supposed to know what it was about, right? It was
Yeah,
it was literally an Easter egg for you to go back and
watch it
find
again.
when you get into the second season. And there's a whole bunch of lines like that Haldir says. That like there's this one line where he says in the first season, they're in Numenor and he's talking to Galadriel, and Galadriel's like got herself thrown in jail because she's mouthed off to the queen. And he
Mhm.
says to her, one thing you may want to try is you may want to try uh, finding out what somebody fears, giving them what they need in order to conquer that fear. And you basically, he says, and using that to get what you want.
Yeah.
And then, so this is the advice he gives Galadriel in the first season. And then you get to the second season and you'll see what he does. And that is exactly what he does, like at every step of the way in the second season.
Mhm.
And somebody literally wrote that line in as foreshadowing for like the entirety of the second season, which was great.
Well, I'm glad that the second season picking up with all that. I
Yeah.
um, I mean, I think the only, honestly, I've liked everything so far. The only thing I thought that was a little forced was Tom Bombadil. He just kind of was like shoehorned in there. And maybe it was the way he introduced himself. The James Bond references are just kind of like weird to put into here. James Bond is the only person who introduces himself his last name first, and I think that bothered me. I don't know why. Because it's like as soon
Bombadil.
as you hear it,
Tom Bombadil.
yeah, like who does that? Like even in Middle Earth, like nobody does that. Like it's
Well, look,
always
if
name son of
anybody's going to do
whoever.
that in Little Earth, it's going to be Tom,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. The only person with a last name, it seems.
Yeah. So I mean, there's been there's been a bunch of people who have been kind of crapping on Tom Bombadil showing up. I think it's fun to have Tom Bombadil show up, but
I'm not
if it
against him showing up. I just
if
think
it
the way
wasn't
they
Tom,
did it.
well, if it wasn't Tom, they needed somebody to fill that role, right? They
Yeah.
needed somebody um to basically kind of give the backstory to the stranger, Proto
Yeah.
Gandalf, Blue Wizard, whoever we think he's going to be.
Yeah.
They needed somebody to say, this is your role and this is what it's all about. And if not Tom, who else are they going to get to do that?
Actually, so I'm noticing you're saying Sauron, Blue Wizard, whoever it's going to be. So even at your point, episode 7, they haven't revealed who that is.
No, they haven't revealed who that is. I mean,
Okay.
there are strong indications that it's Gandalf. He uses a lot of Gandalf-like lines.
No,
Although,
I'm not talking about the stranger. I'm talking about the evil wizard.
oh yeah, no, we don't know who he is.
Okay. Because
Um,
I thought it was a blue wizard, but
it,
even though
it
he's not
could be
blue,
I mean, it could be Saruman. The people who say it's Saruman are basically basing that on the fact that he kind of looks like Saruman.
he looks like the Christopher Lee. Yeah.
Um, it's entirely possible he's a blue wizard because he's doing all the things that a blue wizard would have done. It's entirely possible that he's just he's like a human sorcerer who's going to get a ring. And he's going to be, I mean, another theory is that he's Kamul.
Oh, Kamul would make a lot of sense, actually. So,
I mean, the whole blue wizard thing would make a lot of sense because if you notice, they have had because Bombadil does say that there was another Ishtar there and strongly suggests that he became this other wizard, which means that we have had 2 Ishtars that have shown up and gone east, right?
Yeah.
And if those are the blue wizards, that would also, and we've got the evil blue wizard and we've got the good blue wizard, and they're going to square off against each other. That also makes sense. Whether or not that's going to get wrapped into Gandalf as, kind of a fan favorite because remember, they're playing 2 sides of the street here. They've got to cater to the people who are like I went to the books and this is what the lore says and all this. And then they've also got to cater to the people who have never read the books and whose only exposure to Tolkien is the movies.
Yeah.
And they have no idea that there are 2 blue wizards.
Yeah, exactly. There's no reference to it.
Which may be why we're getting some sort of hybrid Gandalf blue wizard thing to try and satisfy both people. But it's a difficult, they gotta balance on top of a rope there. So
yeah, no, I mean, that can make sense. I mean, if you do bring in a blue wizard, I guess I don't even know how you'd explain that to a casual audience. I mean, do you have to? I mean, Radagast wasn't referenced in the original trilogy, and now here he is in The Hobbit. It's just like, oh yeah, there's this guy now. I mean, technically, he's random and out of left field for anyone who.
Yeah, but they made him a significant character, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they gave him enough screen time so that he was a significant.
Does this
there's nothing wrong with introducing characters, right?
Well, does this new evil wizard have a lot of screen time?
Not yet, but I'm sure he's going to. I mean,
so therefore, to me, introducing him as a blue wizard, I don't think would be weird because then once you give him that time, it's like, okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it. I mean, I think that you're going to. I mean, I think there's going to be some kind of blending because, I mean, I guess in some of Tolkien's letters, he suggested that Gandalf had appeared before in Middle Earth. And maybe Gandalf was an earlier incarnation.
I'm thinking that the stranger is Gandalf.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of finger pointing there's been a whole bunch of signposting that he's Gandalf.
Yeah, so basically, this evil wizard would be the blue one, but just thought. I mean, if he is, and of course, then there's the question of where's the second one if that is him.
Right, but maybe an earlier incarnation of my point is maybe an earlier incarnation of Gandalf was the other blue wizard. Who knows?
Oh, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be
not Gandalf the blue, right? We had Gandalf the gray and Gandalf the white.
Yeah. He could have been blue.
Yep. That's right.
All right. Well, do we have anything else to discuss regarding that, or is that finished?
No.
Okay.
I mean, you're right. We'll have to do like a wrap-up episode once you've all watched this. So
yeah, exactly. We'll do like a whole dedication to the Rings of Power. So
Alice should get a Prime subscription and watch it. It's worth doing.
I have I need to watch it. I've allowed myself to fall behind. I've let all the naysayers dissuade me.
It's the show dynamic thing that for me, I just to sit down and
it's a lot of time invested. Yeah.
So that's the hard part.
That being said, I'll have to watch it so that we can have a more rich and full. Obviously, no video on the Rings of Power is complete without my complete and utter commentary on
And that's how I felt about this, actually.
Yeah, yeah. I've noticed you've kind of felt pensive in the
Yeah.
conversations because I wasn't voicing more of a pronounced opinion. I know that, but it's okay.
I actually texted Matt during this, and I'm like, let's just not invite Alisher on next time.
No, you know what we'll do? I'll just eject him once we get to the ring.
Yeah, it's just like,
Poof. Oh, Alisher had something come up. Well, Alisher's like desperately trying to sign back in.
I'm messaging all of you. All right. Well.
all right.
Okay, take care, everybody.
All right. I'll see you guys.